In April, there were so many things that impacted the 2021 housing market, and the media continues to talk about there being a potential housing market crash in 2021. Today, I'm going to give you all the facts and what happened in April that impacted our housing market, not only in 2021, but the future. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my advice whether now's the best time to buy a house, sell a house, or simply wait. So let's start off by talking about the housing inventory. There's no secret that this historic low inventory is just the thing driving this hot real estate market. So let's look at what happened in April. At the end of the month, we saw actually an uptick for the first time in a while. We saw unsold inventory hit about 2.2 months worth of supply due to all the new listings hitting the market, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Now, inventory levels are up just a little bit from last month. However, if we look at this time last year, inventory levels are still way down when we saw the pandemic hit. To give you more context, we have about 1.1 million homes on the market for sale as I'm making this video. And if we compare that to this time last year, at the end of March, or at the end of April, I should say, in 2020, where we had 1.6 million homes for sale. This means that we had about 554,000 less homes for sale on any given day throughout the entire month of April for buyers to choose from. Next, let's talk about new listings and what happened in April. Although new homes and new listings hitting the market is still down 25% year over year, in April, we saw a nice uptick in new homes hitting the market. Newly listed homes in April grew 32% over this time last year, as we saw over 380,000 new homes hit the market. As compared to last year, we only saw about 287,000 homes hit the market last April. Now, this is a good sign. We're starting to see sellers who at the beginning of the pandemic last year kind of put a pause to their home selling plans and putting moving on hold. We're starting to see some of those sellers get off the sideline, take action, and get their houses on the market. Now let's look at home sales. Now last month, we did see home sales drop just a bit by 3.7%, which the media loves to have a frenzy and talk all about. See, I told you guys, this is why the housing market is going to crash, but that's simply not the case when we take it in context. Home sales are still up almost 17% year over year. When we compare the 600,000 homes that sold last year, if we look what happened in April of 2020, only about 527,000 homes sold. So yes, when we looked last month, home sales were down just a bit. But when we compare that to what happened at the beginning of the pandemic versus where we're at now, things look much better. Which is why many people, including myself, believe that buyer demand is super high and it will continue to increase as we get into the spring and summer real estate market. So with that, let's talk about buyer demand. So there's lots to talk about here, but let's start off by looking at our average days on market, or how fast homes are selling right now versus this time last year. Homes last month sold on average 20 days faster than they did this time last year, which is crazy. This is just another sign or more evidence leading us to believe that buyer demand is increasing, not decreasing like so many people want us to believe. Now, as days on market continues to decrease, meaning homes are selling faster, it does create a world where competitiveness from a buyer standpoint does start to increase, making it more and more difficult or more frustrating for buyers to win offers when they fall in love with a home. Which is why Biden's new proposal of his $25,000 down payment grant could really help first-time home buyers win in this very competitive market. The new proposed plan is a little different than the tax credit. This would be an actual $25,000 grant given to home buyers or first-time home buyers that qualify to help them with their down payment and closing costs. This is not only going to help increase buyer demand yet again, this is going to help first-time home buyers that are flooding the market have a much better opportunity to compete in this real estate marketplace, where in many cases homes are selling with multiple offers, selling for way over the asking price. This potential $25,000 down payment assistance grant could really help this demographic. In fact, millennials made up for 32% of all the home sales last month, and that number is expected to grow. About 4.8 million millennials are turning 30 this year, and they're going to continue to do so for the next 2 to 3 years, which is going to further increase buyers' demand. And this demographic that was 32% of the sales last month is potentially going to go up to 40% of the real estate marketplace, driving buyer demand even higher. So this leads us to home prices. So according to the National Association of Realtors, last month, home prices, listen closely, hit a historic high. We broke a record. Home prices have never been higher than they ever have been in history than where we hit last month. We saw an average price across the country hit over $329,000 for the first time ever. This is obviously a direct result of inventory levels being so low and buyer demand being so high. Some say that we could see home prices even get higher than where we are right now, which is a cause for concern when it comes to home affordability, but this is going to be something that we're going to pay close attention to as 2021 progresses. Now, this leads us into what many believe is the biggest concern, the biggest driving factor to whether or not the housing market in 2021 will crash, which are mortgage interest rates, delinquency, and mortgage foreclosures. Now, even though we saw mortgage interest rates tick up a bit in April, it's really nothing to be excited about or concerned about. I mean, on a 30-year fixed mortgage, interest rates are still hovering around 3.25%, which historically is still at all-time lows. Now, when it comes to mortgage foreclosures, we did see an uptick last month in foreclosure activity, even though we have all of the foreclosure moratoriums in place. And this is now the second month in a row that we've seen an uptick in foreclosure activity. In the first quarter of 2021, lenders reported that they started the foreclosure process on about 18,000 properties, which, when you hear that number for the first time, it might seem very high, but when you look and compare that to where we were at last year, we're still 78% less foreclosures now than we saw this time last year. So while we are seeing foreclosure activities increase, we're still almost 80% down from where we were in the past. And so this is going to be something that we have to pay close attention to as we move through 2021. And we're going to have to pay attention to see, does that rate of foreclosure really go up? And the concern is, if it does and foreclosures start to flood the market, this could be the thing to slow down this real estate market. So as promised, let me kind of get into my recommendation, whether or not now is a good time for you to buy, or maybe you're a real estate agent and you need to give advice to your clients. Is now a good time to buy a house in 2021? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. With mortgage rates being so low, I mean, the fact is we're at historical mortgage lows. Buyers can get a lot for their money right now, as compared to when interest rates were at 6 or 7%. So buying a house right now still poses as a great opportunity, especially for first-time home buyers with all the new tax credits and now a potential $25,000 down payment grant. I think now's a really good time to buy a home. However, with the lack of inventory, if you have been trying to buy a house or you're a real estate agent that's representing buyers, the challenge is how competitive the market is right now with such a lack of homes hitting the market. But the good news, based on the numbers, based on the data, we should anticipate more and more homes hitting the market this spring and summer. What about selling? Is now a good time to sell your home? Short answer, yes. And I cannot express that more. Now is arguably, and you know what? It's not even arguably. It's undebatable. Now is absolutely the best time in history to sell a home. With inventory levels being so low, with interest rates being so low, buyer demand being so high, you'll have, if you were to sell your house, you will have multiple people bidding against each other, driving the price up for your property. We have never seen a more competitive market like we're seeing right now. And so for homeowners thinking about selling a home, I make the argument that you probably will never, ever again be able to get as much for your home as you could get for it right now. Now, yes, the challenge of selling is if I sell now, where do I go? And yes, I'll have to pay a premium for another home. But for a lot of people that are downsizing or potentially in a position where you don't have to buy another home, with all those people, all the landlords out there looking to sell their properties, I mean, now is the right time to cash in and take advantage of this market. So are we heading towards a 2021 housing market crash? Well, as the data suggests, in April, it doesn't appear so. It does not. We have no concrete evidence. We have no data that supports that we're heading towards a crash. It's quite the opposite, actually. And so if you want to see more of these 2021 housing market update videos, I make one of these every single month on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and let me know what questions you have in the comment section. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is watch this video right here where I explain to you what's necessary to cause a housing market crash.